Lagos State, as the re-election bid of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu got a major boost yesterday as high-profile stakeholders in the All Progressives Congress, APC, endorsed the president for another term of 4 years at a forum in Lagos. Although the endorsement did not come as a surprise, given Tinubu's tight hold on the politics of the state since 1999, it was significant for a man who lost the state in the last presidential election. This time, all the stakeholders seem to have come together in unison to give him the nod. And they are leaving no stone unturned in that regard. The decision was reached by thousands of the party's chieftains and members during the APC Stakeholders Forum 2025 held at Echo Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island. While ministers, federal lawmakers and other Lagos supporters rolled out some of the major achievements of the government, the party leadership staked 20 million naira prize money for any local government with the highest registered voters.
Mobilization, 10 million for the ward that has the highest mobilization, and we then have a look again at how elections in Nigeria is for the highest bidders sometimes, and money plays a critical role. Again, tighter legislation around it so that there's a fair playing ground. Finally, all eyes on INEC. We can say all that we want to around, well, let's get more people registered to vote, let's get our election campaigns going on. But if INEC is not able to prosecute a free and fair election, unfortunately, mobilize all you want, there will still be voter apathy because the people do not believe in the sanctity and the transparency and fairness of election processes in Nigeria. So that's the task for Professor Amokiton as it takes office. May INEC be strong as an institution towards the next election so that we are able to give the people a voice, that the power will rest truly in the office of the citizen.
Okay, so let me start from Lagos. It will be travesty. It will be, I don't know what to call it, if the APC stakeholders in Lagos do not endorse their father. President Tinubu is their father. Is the head of the APC clan in Lagos and in Nigeria. So endorsing him, in fact, is academic. They didn't even need to come out openly in an event to endorse him. They've already endorsed him long ago. But you see, the hypocrisy in this country is that INEC is blind to it. Obviously, that's not a political activity, isn't it? For the elections coming up. No, it's not a campaign. Now you don't say that. INEC is blind. You see, when it comes to APC, it's not a campaign. If other political parties do it, it becomes a campaign. Voter inducement has started in earnest. Yeah. You are putting 20 million forward for people to register to vote. That's voter inducement. People must be encouraged to register of their own free will. Once you put money in the cycle, it's voter inducement. Just like we called out trader money a couple of years ago, that was voter inducement. This is a level of voter inducement. If you tell INEC will turn their eye to it. They will say, no, we can't see it. In fact, they will say, prove empirical facts. Maybe the money is going to the people that are able to mobilize the most. We are waiting for INEC's drone that they say they will use to monitor votes. As long as the APC does it, they look away from it. If another political party does it, it's travesty. That's the kind of country we live in. I call out the hypocrisy of the APC because they are the government in power. If any other government comes in power, these are going to call out their hypocrisy. It's never personal. I'm just a patriot. So we are waiting to see our next reaction to all of these endorsements and counter endorsements. The best INEC will probably do is to write a general long-winded statement. That's even INEC, if they have time, if they've not finished settling the 1.5 billion they are requesting to be able to get voters registered. The other day we said it here, and I thought it was because we said it, that's why the NNPC too quickly brought out their figures when we're talking about NUPRC, because we gave a jab and we said, where is the NNPC going to bring out their figures? So you see, these attempts to turn governance into propaganda, where everybody's bringing out figures, but we're not seeing the after effects. Yes, NNPC claims about 10 trillion in 8 months. I'm happy that you stated that report from Agora Policy, where they said that the money is not being remitted to the FAC accounts. That trillion they are talking is even an unaudited report in the first place. So it's not an audited report. And when you look at the revenue they say they made compared to the profit in the end, there's a big far cry.
Yeah.
So it is when we see the audited report, we will know what is going to Operation Gazelle and other swaps that they have done, other encumbrances. We will even know how much they are spending on refineries that are moribund. You were asking a very important question. What are they going to do with refineries? Let me tell you what they've said they want to do. They said they need $60 billion more. After the $3 billion that they gave them that didn't work. Who said it? Ujulari said it when he was meeting stakeholders of Pengasin and the like. And that's why the other day when Pengasin was fighting a private refinery in Dangote, my grasp with them is that if they have gone to protest against NNPC and say put the refinery to work, I will have accepted. I get a lot of calls. I got a random call yesterday by someone that said he was part of those that were fixing some things in the Kaduna refinery, that the project has not been stored, that a company who seconded the project to them, and in fact I didn't even get the full gist. The question we should ask them is, we will now know how much they are still spending on refineries that are not producing, because over the years they are also paying salaries and encumbrances for refineries that are not producing.
True.
You remember how we told them that what they were doing was a blending plants. People came to protest outside Arise TV and carry placard. Thanks to Ozi. It was Ozi that also showed the shenanigans, how they were sharing money after the protest. You see, it is righteousness that builds a nation. Sin is a reproach. See, we can decide to keep quiet and just come up here every morning and look like nothing is happening and say things to favor people, and Nigeria keeps getting damaged. But you see, when I sleep every night, it's the conscience and the heartbeat of the innocent people that make us talk every day. And that's why we are so quick to say, okay, they are putting money in FAC. Where is the money? Agora reports will say what they are putting is a far cry to what they claim they are churning out. Yeah. This was the same NNPC that told us lies about subsidy. After President Tinubu announced subsidy gone, they still went ahead to claim subsidy for about a year in this country, despite the fact that they told us subsidy gone. It was now, I think, early last year, then I said they have finally removed subsidy. I remember when Rotus and I was always plotting the numbers as saying that they are still paying subsidy. They said it's a lie. We don't know what we're talking about.
Well, now we shift our attention to the opposition, as the Federal High Court in Abuja has reserved judgment in a suit seeking to stop the planned national convention of the People's Democratic Party over alleged breaches of the party's constitution. Justice James Omotosho fixed October 31st for ruling after final arguments were taken from all sides. 3 senior PDP officials, including Imo and Abia State Chairman, are asking the court to halt the November 15 to 16 convention in Ibadan, claiming Congresses weren't held in 14 states, violating the PDP Constitution and Electoral Act. The plaintiffs, through Joseph Daudu, SAN, argued that INEC must supervise valid Congresses. But defense lawyers Paul Erokoro and Eitayo Jegede, SAN, insist that the matter is internal and not for court interference. Well, a ruling in favor of the plaintiffs could derail the PDP's push to elect new national officers. That's ahead of the 2027 elections. Now to the economy, as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited remitted 10.073 trillion naira to the Federation account between January and August 2025. That's according to the company's September 2025 monthly performance report released yesterday. The cumulative figure represents statutory payments from oil and gas operations over the first 8 months of the year, with the National Oil Company recording 4.26 trillion naira revenue in August alone. The remitted funds include proceeds from crude and condensate sales, gas sales, royalties, taxes, and other payments due to the Federation. The remittance in August was an increase of about 1.21 trillion naira compared to July. Now, this is against the company's cumulative remittance of 8.86 trillion naira to the Federation account between January and July 2025, underscoring its growing role as the country's fiscal anchor despite persistent industry challenges. Now to the Senate, as the Nigerian Senate has taken a tough stance against sexual offenders, recommending life imprisonment for defilement. The upper legislative chamber also pushed for a minimum of 10 years jail term for anyone who detains and has carnal knowledge of anyone without the consent of that person. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye tells us more.
Federal lawmakers in the Senate returned to plenary on Tuesday, and we are required to consider for concurrence 3 separate bills from the House of Representatives. The first, and perhaps most engaging, is the Criminal Code Act Amendment Bill 2025 that seeks to provide stiffer punishments for crime offenders in Nigeria. After initial procedural hitches, they were quickly corrected. The Senate slammed a hefty 10-year jail term on persons who detain and have carnal knowledge of another person's without their consent. The Senate hard stance follows the motion by Senator Peter Nweboyi for stiffer punishment from 5 years to 10. On penalty for defilement, Senate rejected a 20-year jail term suggested by Senator Adamu Shiomole and settled for a stiffer punishment of life imprisonment for offenders pushed by Senator Adamu Alero.
Those involved in defilement should suffer greater punishment. I propose that it should be 20 years if you defile an underage.
Yeah, Pakistan and what have you. It's capital punishment, but here we can reduce it to life imprisonment.
But the issue of abortion was a tougher hurdle for the Senate to cross, even after it had rejected a 10-year jail sentence for offenders. It was difficult to define when abortion would be legal or illegal, merciful or callous.
For instance, if the person has medical issues, the person can go and say, I want to terminate that pregnancy. So at what stage the person who decides to say, I want to terminate a burden on me, when will you now say it's unlawful?
After going back and forth on the matter, the Senate resolved to step down the bill for further consideration. But just as the president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, hits the gavel, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan raises a point of order to speak on the matter that was already concluded.
I'm a woman, and so abortion has to do with women.
Yes, Senator. That when a matter has been concluded and you have dropped the gavel, in this particular case, to allow for more conversation, if you grant exemption to distinguish Senator Natasha, then you must extend the same extension to us, in which case our rules will become meaningless.
Citing Order 52, Akpabio subsequently ruled Akpoti-Uduaghan out of order. The bill is then referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Legal Matters and Human Rights for further legislative action. It will revert to the Senate in 2 weeks. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
Putting their endorsement forward, which comes as no surprise, no surprise whatsoever. And of course, she's being sarcastic.
The city has delivered.
Exactly. NNPC as well in the news, and of course our favorite PDP always in the news. Several issues to unpack.
All right, several issues, very limited time, so I'll pick 1 or 2 of them and allow you both to unpack the others. Okay, so first of all, let me speak on a very important news this morning, which is the last one you took around. And I want to say that the Senate was quite busy yesterday, went through a few motions, pushed a few motions, and had quite a robust debate on in the hallowed chambers. And that's very good, because we often talk about the time of recess that they have and how much time they have to actually do the work of lawmaking, or in the National Assembly. But what they've now said, based on the motion that has been passed, which still has to be assented by the president, was transmitted from the House of Representatives, which is to increase the sentence for crimes that are around the defilement of a child, which is a welcome development. However, there's still a few kinks here and there. So what they're proposing is life imprisonment, up from, I believe it was 5 years as a minimum sentence in the current law. But what a number of people would then ask is, what is the definition of a minor or of a child in Nigeria? Because this has come up for debate a number of times. According to the Child's Rights Act of 2003, which sought to domesticate the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the age of a child is 18 and below. However, for this to become law in Nigeria, it has to be domesticated across the 36 states of Nigeria. Whilst most states have domesticated it, not all states have done so. So currently, we're still with the Child and Young Persons Act, which defines a child as under 14 years old. And so for this defilement of a minor to really make a lot of sense, which I must say is at least we've started off on a very good note in terms of a direction to the protection of children and minors in Nigeria, we must also look at lobbying the states which governments have not, or the State House of Assemblies have not ratified the Child's Rights Act of 2003. I think that's a very important one to have, because when you bring a matter before the court, some states might argue that, well, this child is not a minor because the child is
beautiful. It's your name.
Over 14 years old, and we know that at 18 is when the United Nations recommends. But I think it's very good, and I believe that more pressure should be on those states to ensure they domesticate the Child Rights Act. Now, going on to rapists, I know a number of people had wanted, some of the senators had wanted more years in terms of the number of minimum sentencing, but they agreed on 10 years, and that's also a win, at least moving forward away from the 5 years initial that it was. So that's brilliant. Hopefully this will act as a deterrent. I also wish they would debate on the floor of the House, since we're talking about matters like this, around domestic violence, so that we're able to protect women and men, whether in their homes, in marriages, and also whether it's a relationship, so that we really protect both men and women. Like I said earlier this week, we have had quite a number of high-profile cases in recent times that border around domestic violence issues. And we have also seen a number of unfortunate deaths as a result of domestic violence. And so it's also time that on the floor of in the hallowed chambers, they actually debate this and they find a stiffer punishment to deter domestic violence and also loss of lives in Nigeria, and also, of course, the effect it has on children and their psychology. So good one there. I think there also are debates around protecting the Dangote refinery and other Nigerian industries, businesses in Nigeria. That's still up for debate. There's also an investigation, and I think this is quite important, around monies up to about $4 million or over $4 million that was released by certain developmental agencies towards the towards eradication of polio, AIDS, and I think TB and tuberculosis, and how that money was spent over time. Because we hear money like this being allocated to fight certain diseases, whilst Nigeria still remains